The third part of the Directory for Catechesis has introduced us to the idea that the evangelizing mission of the Church is carried out within the specific context of particular churches, the community within which each of us lives and worships, based around the parish, but also encompassing groups and associations and Catholic schools. We've read that each particular church is called upon to carry out catechesis as an expression of evangelization within its own cultural and social context. Now, this may have put us in mind of what part 2 of the Directory says about the divine pedagogy. God meets his people where they are, speaking to them in ways they know and understand in order to communicate his divine message. And this is what we are called to do as catechists in the context of our particular church. Now the Directory goes into more detail as to what it means to catechize within a particular church. It points out that catechesis has an intrinsic cultural and social dimension in that it is situated within a church that is incorporated into the human community. So it's this cultural and social dimension of catechesis that we're going to be looking at next as we approach the end of the Directory. The Directory recognises that contemporary culture is a very complex reality, but it points out that catechesis needs to be fully at the service of the enculturation of the faith if it is to be truly integrated into people's lives. The people we catechize shouldn't have to feel like their faith and their life in the parish is something completely separate and incompatible with the rest of their lives. We're called to find ways to integrate faith into everyday modern life. So here the Directory goes through some of the different cultural realities we may need to bear in mind as we catechize. So for instance, the Directory talks of the different challenges and opportunities of catechizing in an urban setting, that is, cities, where life can be full of vibrant opportunities for community life and self-discovery, but can also be marked by isolation and insecurity. In this context, our catechesis is called to be, as the Directory puts it, transparent, humanising, and full of hope. In rural settings, meanwhile, there are other potential threats to the stability of community life that catechesis should take into account. The Directory also points out that there are particular challenges and opportunities in catechizing in a non-Catholic country. It describes catechesis as being intrinsically marked by an ecumenical dimension. That is, it strives towards the unity of all Christians. Because of this, the Directory tells us, the proclamation of the gospel and catechesis are at the service of dialogue and ecumenical formation. So, the more we deepen and nurture our own Catholic Christian faith, the better disposed we are for fruitful, charitable dialogue with those of other Christian denominations, of those of other faiths, and those of no faith at all. Finally, the Directory talks of some of the cultural attitudes we may need to engage with in our catechesis. For instance, it talks of the scientific mentality, the idea that because scientific knowledge is highly valuable, it is therefore in fact the only form of valuable knowledge, and anything that cannot be scientifically proven is irrelevant to modern life. Then we have the digital culture, the great influence of online social networks, and the internet in general, on how we interact with each other. The Directory also talks of bioethical issues, such as abortion and euthanasia, which undermine the principle of the intrinsic dignity of every human person. Now, the Directory does not set out for us a response to these cultural challenges, but it does encourage us to find and incorporate a faith-filled answer to these challenges in our catechesis. So, how can we sum up what the Directory has to say about catechesis and culture? Well, we've seen that catechesis, because it takes place in a particular church, embedded in a specific human community, always has to take into account culture and society if it is to present the message of the gospel in a way that truly speaks to people's everyday experience. It can do this by taking into account a variety of different cultural challenges and opportunities. For instance, urban settings and rural settings, the ecumenical dimension of catechesis in non-Catholic countries, and cultural attitudes shaped by the scientific mentality, digital culture, and bioethical issues that undermine the dignity of human life. So, with this overview of catechesis and culture, we've reached the end not only of this third part of the directory, but also of the directory as a whole.